given that it is 7 o'clock, I think we can start our meeting. Again, thank you to the attendees who have come on time and early. So you are at the public forum for the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee. We have requested that we wanted to get community feedback and understand community experiences with Lexpress. So we are holding this public forum. I'm going to start sharing my screen to show some of the slides that we are going to work with. So give me 1 second. So I guess everybody can see my screen. I'm probably not going to do it on slide mode. Or does anybody have a preference in the team? Bridget, is this okay, or do you want me to do it on slide mode?
Whatever works for you. Presentation mode's fine.
Okay, this mode is fine, right?
You maybe want to just
Your notes page is showing, so you can use, if you go
Okay,
to
I'll go to
presentation
slideshow.
mode.
All right, not that my notes have. Is that better? Everybody on? Okay, perfect. So now I don't have my notes. All right. I hope you all are here to see the community forum and to take part in it. And it is hosted by us, which is the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee. Committee members, please just introduce yourselves as we go through the list. So we have 7 voting members. I'm Deepika Sani. I'm from the school committee, and I am also the chair of this committee. Bridget?
Yeah, Bridget, vice chair and vice chair also of the.
Sally?
I'm Sally Castleman, and I represent the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Howard?
I'm Howard Cloth. I'm a member of the senior age demographic in town, also on the board of Lexington at Home, which is a social network of Lexington seniors who want to age in their homes as long as possible.
Carolyn?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Kosnoff. I am the town's assistant town manager for finance, and ultimately responsible for overseeing the town's budget process. And so I am on the committee to bring that viewpoint to the work.
Varda?
Varda Hamo. I'm the business representative on the committee.
We have Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon Gunda. I'm the Clinical and Community Outreach Manager for the Human Services Department. And I'm here just representing all the age groups in Lexington.
Thank you. And we have 2 non-voting members. Joe?
I'm Joe Pato, Select Board Chair and liaison to the board, which convened this ad hoc committee.
And Susan?
Hello, I am the transportation manager. Thank you.
Perfect. So moving along, Ms. Kosnoff.
Thank you. All right, so why are we all here tonight? So the select board has formed this ad hoc transportation committee, and they have given us a fairly robust charge, all of the bullet points that you see here on the screen. And this really came about as we were developing last year's, or actually the current year fiscal 24 budget, which the primary process for that happened last fall. Fiscal 24 was a particularly challenging budget year from many aspects. There's a lot of pressure on wages and other town services, and in particular, our contracted services. The current Lexpress service is fully contracted out. The 5-year contract ended at the end of last fiscal year, which was June 30th. So now with fiscal 24, we have a new contract, and it is significantly more expensive than the last contract. The price increased, which is to be expected, and that's usually what happens at the end of a 5-year contract. But given some of the other difficulties in the budget, the select board really wanted us, and also there's many other factors here, which we will get into about ridership and fares and other things. But the select board really felt the need as we were going through the budget process and making tough decisions to take a closer look at the Lexpress service and determine whether or not what we are doing currently to provide transportation in Lexington makes sense. And so you can see some of the items that are here in the charge. We need to look at Lexpress compared to other local transportation options available from the MBTA, from other services, from ride shares and things like that. We need to look at the cost per passenger and how that compares to other transit systems, both locally and across the United States. We need to determine whether or not the needs are being met. And, we're not going to get too much into the details of the service tonight, but ridership numbers have gone up and down. COVID was a challenge. And routes have changed and fares have changed. And so we need to determine whether or not we are still meeting needs, and particularly for different demographics in town. We often break down ridership into things like senior students, business riders. And so we need to take a look at that. We need to review the routes and see if they are efficient or if there are changes that can be made there to create more efficiency. We are going to be reviewing the fare structure, which we'll talk more about that in a moment. As I noted a moment ago, Lexpress is a fully contracted service, but something we could consider is trying to bring that in-house, which would mean that we would have to purchase buses, we would have to hire drivers, we would have to have a maintenance team. And then with all of those things put together and all of those reviews, eventually provide some feedback to the select board about the current state of Lexpress and whether or not it makes sense to continue the service. If so, to continue it as is, or are there other things that need to be explored or changed? And so with all that being said, we are obviously tonight really looking to get public feedback, not necessarily about every item on this page, but particularly about whether needs are being met, the fare structures, the efficiency of routes and things like that. And so again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So I'm going to pass it on to the next.
Thank you, Ms. Kosnov. I think Bridger, you were talking to this slide.
I think I was.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Sally.
It's okay. So we currently, as you all know, have 3 buses and they are providing 3 routes as opposed to the 6 we used to have. In recent years, ridership has decreased. Part of that has to do, of course, with COVID. All systems all over the country lost ridership during COVID. But it also has to do with congestion. Routes couldn't keep up to their schedules because there was so much more traffic and congestions. In the mid-2000s, we had a dramatic decrease in student ridership because there was a push to get students onto school buses. Also with fare increases, we always lose riders. And Lexington's become more and more of a car culture, and more parents are driving the kids to work. More people are jumping in their cars to do errands where maybe they once walked. And it's like everything else, costs are increasing, traffic's increasing. And because there are destinations far out in Lexington, more on the borders, in order to get there, we've had to skip some that are closer in or haven't been able to go as far. So there are fewer destinations being served than there used to be. And there are more competing transportation options, like I said, the school buses, but also there's now Uber and Lyft and things like that. And we have not had a marketing budget in a very long time. So that's sort of where things stand now. A lot of challenges.
Thank you, Sally. All right. Bridger,
Thanks. So what's some of you might not be aware of is that just recently the select board approved and we've implemented in town a limitless pass for $20, which went into effect on July 1st. And while we've had more passes distributed in FY24 than all of FY23 and seen some ridership increases, one of the continuing focuses of this committee is to really look at fare structure, and the opportunities to continue to, drill into what the most efficient or effective fare structure might be. But we wanted to share with the group tonight, as we talk about this, we're very interested to hear your feedback on fares, passes, and how that structure and process works for you as we think about the future of Lexpress. And so as you can see here, there's places that you can log in and buy the passes or visit, such as Michelson's or the community center or the high school, in order to secure your unlimited $20 pass. Next slide. But tonight it's much more than just the passes. There's a lot of information that's actually been shared with you already tonight, and many of you on this call may also have your own personal experiences or your own ideas for how we can begin as a community to recognize the challenges of that we face going into the future, how Lexpress plays a role or doesn't play a role in that future, and how we can begin to really formulate some recommendations to best apply the right solution to serve the residents of Lexington, whether it be with buses or a multi or a different mobility solution as well. And so, tonight we really want to listen to you and hear about your ideas and your experiences. And so these insights, like as we think about that, look at, what are the needs for mass transit within Lexington? We're not able to, and this committee is not charged with like fully drilling down on how the MBTA serves Lexington. And I'm sure many of you have some strong feelings about the lack or the changes in how MBTA has served over the years, to hear about how Lexpress or other solutions also play into that. As you think about how you've used Lexpress, we've heard a lot of thought, comments. We've looked at the research about how people have used Lexpress in the before the pandemic, and even that past experiences, the pandemic changed a lot of how we think about using transportation. So we appreciate you sharing your past experiences with Lexpress, what was working, what didn't work then. But now, as we're through the pandemic, the same questions like what's working, what's not working, and how could that be improved? And then, each of you as riders or potential riders of Lexpress, or as representatives of communities that might access this system, think about what are the unmet transportation needs? Like where are you trying to go? How do you get there? Is Lexpress the right solution for that? Or is something else better suited? And then, as we think about actually, if you agree that a bus and a shuttle bus is the right way to get you where you need to go, is Lexpress actually going where you want to go, or does it need to go somewhere else? And so, as you saw in the charge in the beginning that Carolyn walked through, like each of these is a very important challenge that we have, and we're working hard as a committee, and we welcome your comments tonight. So thank you for being here. But and these are some of the challenges that we face. Next slide.
I think the next slide is at the end, so I'm going to stop sharing right now. And so what we're going to do, sorry.
So do you want us to move into the? Yes,
Bridget, I'm just going to speak a little bit to set the context, only because you sometimes fade in and out. So it might just be easier for me to set the context, but then I'll hand it over to you.
All right, let me kill my video.
So again, thank you so much to all the attendees. We are hoping that you will tell us about your own experiences or experiences of your children or your parents or your employees, whatever you feel that you can share about how Lexpress has worked for you. This is a very important conversation because the select board has tasked us to actually do this outreach and get feedback from the community. So the simplest process, like in every webinar, is just raise your hand and Bridget will call on you. You can share your experiences. Of course, be respectful, be courteous, but please feel feel that you can share everything about your experience. So I don't see any hands up as of yet. We have one, and Bridget,
All right.
I'm going to unmute
Well, great.
John. And then, and just another quick thing is that we will request that you state your name and your address. If you are a student, so under 18, please don't state your full address, but you can just state your town. And even if others want to just state their name and town, that is also absolutely fine. So
Great. So let's start with John.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, John.
Well, thank you, and thank you everyone for this community forum. My name is John Zhao, Precinct 5 and town meeting member. I'm also co-chair of Council on Aging, but I speak for myself. A few of seniors and they came to me, and we had some discussion. That's why, and I joined this a forum here. So my first question is, do we have ridership data in terms of how frequently that and a person or segment of our residents take the Lexpress? Here's why, and I have this question. So I know, mostly, and the concern in me is the seniors. So I know many of our seniors still driving. However, we do have a segment of the seniors, especially in the three senior living villages, and many of them don't drive. So Lexpress and is the way that they commute. That be said, many of them basically saying they don't take the bus so often, and some of them said they take monthly and often goes to, for example, Burlington Mall. There's some things they need to buy, and some goes to Leahy's and for some appointment. So it's not that on the daily, even some weekly basis. So consequently, and with the new change, what the net effect, some of them saying, and they only see the fare increased. So my question is, how, and do we have any ridership data, right, in terms of how often and people take the bus? Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. That's a great question. We do have all of our ridership information specifically for how people are riding the buses, and obviously with the fare change on July 1st, the fares are decreasing. But part of this analysis is, yes, we do have the ridership data. So thank you. Over to you, Lena. Again, and could you share, Lena, your name and your address? And obviously, if you're a high school student, please don't give us your full address. And let's unmute.
Okay, great. Can you guys hear me all right?
I can, Lena. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. So my name is Lena Day, and I'm a student at LHS. I live in Lexington near Clark Middle School. First, I just wanted to say that I'm thankful that the Lexpress is a service, because it's great for students and people who can't drive. A few of the unmet services that I would say I've noticed is that weekend service, I wish that there were more rides on the weekend, because students, they can't drive themselves. So even though it's great that it's a service during the week, when people want to go hang out at the center on the weekends, I know that there's sort of that gap in like fulfillment of services. Also, I wish that the LHS, when our school ends, it doesn't align super well with when Lexpress comes by the LHS. It's about an hour wait just because of the way that the scheduling of Lexpress works. I feel like more service that is aligned for students and takes into account students' schedules and where they're going would be amazing. Also, I feel like a bit more education in like elementary and middle school regarding how to use Lexpress, and also just like maybe a walkthrough of how to buy a fare, how to stop, and like just flag down Lexpress would be great, because the only way that I ever knew how to take Lexpress was because of my older friends who showed me by themselves and took me on Lexpress with them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lena. Those are great input. So appreciate that very much. We'll go over to Ruben.
Can you unmute him?
Ruben, can you hear us?
Could you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, sorry. I pleased to be here. Thank you so much to all the committee and all the community servants at Lexington. First of all, it's an honor to be here because I have been 2 times resident of Lexington. Before I was with a car and now I don't have a car. So I have been since February with my wife, a permanent users of Lexpress. And here is one of my thoughts to share with you from the inside perspective of a user, but also thinking in how can I add some vision to the table for the discussion that Caroline mentioned, what makes sense when you are trying to make a policy decision. First of all, the first thing that comes to my mind is that I have the privilege right now to have the first taste of taking all the 3 routes of Lexpress, A1, A2, B, and C. And since that's an opportunity, I feel it's also a blessing to enjoy all Lexington community with a different angle. First, the users that I have witnesses with my wife. I have the experience a couple of times of people experiencing disabilities. And I noticed how the drivers took care so gentle of people who need to commute to places like Market Basket, or even from Depot Square to LETV Clinic, like my other colleague mentioned about the schedules and the way that Lexpress get also to LETV Clinic when you are in need to go to the hospital. The second thing that comes to my mind is the thing that I noticed of modeling while you are driving and being part of a Lexington public transportation system. One thing that caught my attention that was, we were with my wife, and obviously when you ride Lexpress, they said buckle up, it's also mandatory to buckle up, but it was kind of interesting to see that prior to the pandemic, when I had the car, I remember that obviously you have to do the Dodge view to take care of bikers and pedestrians in crossing walks. But we were with my wife and we witnessed that Lexpress stop in a crosswalks and the bikers don't. All people cross walking. It was a senior couple crossing the street, and Lexpress give an example of what is to stop and lead by example to other drivers and also to bikers. And right now with the new laws in Massachusetts, I tend to see that bikers sometimes are very aggressive, and it's important to model in some way how to behave and follow the rules. And the other thing that comes to my mind is also the use of public transportation, or probably the easy way to don't have an impact on the ecosystem. I don't know, and this is a question for you because I don't know how efficient is Lexpress in the use of renewable energy. But we have to keep in mind that the sustainable development goals is for 2030, and that includes also, in our case, towns. And I always see Lexington as a blessing for my family. Being a Lexington resident for almost 7 years, I feel this is a blessed town. And if we lead by example, we can follow what one of the politicians here in Massachusetts that disappeared from this earth long time ago, Tip O'Neill, said, all politics is local. And if we can lead by example, show to the next generations what we can do, probably this could be an example that we can discuss, like I have the privilege to discuss examples worldwide at the Fletcher School. So it could be interesting to see what Lexington has to share. But thank you so much for all what you are doing. And if I can add any feedback, not a public expert, but just an user, I definitely will recommend that the town needs to lead and take a look more deeply, not just cost-benefit analysis, but what Caroline said at the beginning, what makes sense, because there's a lot of things going on. And also security. I forgot to mention that because I was trying to understand Massachusetts laws, but I don't know if it's allowed to video record or no, but I see that Lexpress covers so many places. And I feel that the drivers can support in some way in the hour that they are operating for emergency things that could happen. Because I feel that I don't remember, it was a month ago, we have the alert of the bears here in Lexington. And because I don't have a car, believe me, I was scared to walk in outside. And I said, okay, if you find a bird in the street, you could be in trouble. And Lexpress is kind of interesting to have that resource to get in the bus before the bird attack you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruben, for all those comments. I appreciate the feedback and the ideas. All right. Tom, thank you for chiming in. Let's get you in here. Tom, can you hear me?
So I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Could you state your name and address?
Thank you. My name and address, Uttam Rajbandari, Wheeler Road in Lexington.
Thank you.
As an 88-year-old who has lived in Lexington for over 53 years, I would like to share with you a personal story about what Lexpress has meant to me more recently. Advised not to drive temporarily for health reasons, I was surprised and disappointed and felt that life had almost come to a halt. But then my daughter, who has used Lexpress before many times when she was young, at her advice, I got on the Lexpress bus and everything changed. I discovered the tremendous resource that Lexpress really is and what town of Lexington has over the years provided to its residents. Using Lexpress, I could go from my house to the senior center, Lexington Center, the post office, pharmacies, restaurants, grocery stores, library, and many other places, including the lay clinic that has been mentioned more than once. Lexpress also made me appreciate once more what a wonderful place the Lexington Center really is. Waiting for Lexpress buses to arrive or to pick up, I would just walk up and down Mass Ave and all of a sudden realize what a great place Lexington Center really is. I could also use Lexpress to go to Arlington Heights and go up there on buses to Cambridge, Alewife Station, and connect to the subway station, and even go to MIT. In short, Lexpress really made it possible for me to get around without a car. And the previous speaker has mentioned that he and his wife also don't drive, and he uses Lexpress on a regular basis. So I did that too. Now, riding on Lexpress was also a great pleasure. The buses are on time, and the drivers, who you get to know quite well, are invariably polite and go out of their way to be helpful to the passengers. I even got to know a driver in his 70s with an amazing record, an Army veteran who started a foundation on his own to help disabled children, and now drives the bus, presumably to just keep active and get busy. Through Lexpress, I also got to know many other passengers who I might not have met otherwise. Those who were elderly, those who were physically handicapped, people visiting Lexington temporarily and living with families, relatives, parents with small children, or groups of 15 or 20 students, along with their chaperones. It was such a pleasure to meet them, and I looked forward to seeing them on a regular basis when I was riding the Lexpress. So Lexpress also brings people together. And I thought that committee should know that. The Lexpress, there are all kinds of problems with Lexpress in terms of finances and all that. I understand that. But Lexpress has many things that it really speaks for itself. I'm now driving back again, fortunately, but I enjoyed my experience with Lexpress so much that I intend to ride Lexpress on a more or less regular basis still, and will buy the annual pass, and encourage my friends and neighbors to do the same again. So that's really, I wanted to share with you what a wonderful resource Lexpress really is. And I hope that it will continue as it is without too much of a change. And some of the previous speakers mentioned about fares systems and all that. I think one of the things that could be done is to really enforce fares collection. I noticed that the drivers don't seem to remind people to pay the fares. And fare collection, I think, has been really not enforced. I've even as a senior, I have always put in my $1 or $2 or whatever it is whenever I take the bus. And in the last 6 months, I really took a lot. So I'm sorry, I'm going over time.
No.
I really wanted to share my feelings about Lexpress. It's a great resource.
Tom, thank you very much, and for those heartfelt comments. That's wonderful, and I appreciate the willingness to be here tonight and share what sounds like wonderful experiences. And I'm glad that Lexpress has played that role for you. Thank you. We have Nishant as well. Let me bring you in here.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, Nish. Thank you very much.
Hi, okay.
Could you share your address with the group? Ooh.
Oh, sorry. My name is Nishant Gundam. I'm the student liaison to the Transportation Advisory Committee, as well as a rising junior at LHS.
Thank you.
There are a lot of students who I've interviewed and talked to who have expressed a lot of, or regarding the $20 pass, a lot of like almost 25 to 30 students that I've talked to, almost all of them have expressed a strong interest in purchasing the pass, but also using the Lexpress frequently. So I don't necessarily think it's fair to come to any conclusions before the start of the school year when as of right now, we kind of anticipate a little spike as more students figure out that this pass exists and that the Lexpress is a more accessible service. And we also, out of a survey that was conducted to many students, we saw that a lot of factors that held back students from using the Lexpress was the schedule and frequency. We saw that the times weren't really aligned with their ability to get to school and getting from school, and mainly and more importantly, their ability to get to and from after school activities. Almost, I don't want to say a concrete number, but I'd say around 50% or more LHS students are involved in some form of after school, like extracurriculars, sports, or activities. And a lot of those students get back home using cars. And that's not necessarily the best form because we've already had we've had 2 accidents within the last 2 years, and having any accidents at a high school, like in terms of cars, that's too many. So I think decongesting the LHS zone, which is kind of a motive that's been backed by former Principal Stevens, is very important. And I don't necessarily think that getting rid of Lexpress is going to help that. I only think it's going to make the problem worse, as especially in the winter, more students will turn to their cars, and there'll be even more cars coming into the greater LHS area. Yeah, that's it right now. I might have a few more things that come to my mind, but I yield.
Nish, could you just extrapolate on the seasonality and your impression of that?
Yeah.
Why do you perceive the winter choosing a car over a bus?
So typically in the winter, a lot of students will turn to their cars because they either don't want to wait outside of their houses or at the bus stop for too long. And ideally, or in my perfect scenario, the Lexpress would run often enough to the point where students would only be like, or would only have to wait a maximum of 30 minutes outside. And that would enable them to just quickly take the bus from point A to point B. And they wouldn't necessarily have to wait outside during the winters for as long.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else you wanted to add at this time?
No, thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you for those comments. I don't know if it's Geetha or Sanjay. My friend, who's on here?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't change the name on my Zoom call, but this is Sanjay Padaki, Precinct 8 Town Meeting member, also member of the Appropriation Committee, but I'm speaking here just by myself here. I was thinking through this, there are many options to solve the financial end of the Lexpress situation, but not going into that. If we want to maintain the service, I see three demographics that we are trying to address. There's the senior citizen population that we should address. We should address the student population. And then there's everybody else that I club in the middle. Everybody else is not on a fixed schedule. The students are on a fixed schedule. They take the bus in the morning, at the school bus in the morning, and then they have fixed schedule in the evening when the school lets out. They go into specific locations. The senior citizens, again, don't use it every day. It seems like they go from one place to a couple of different places in town or at the edge of town, and we need to service that population. So to me, having a Lexpress service that kind of adapts to this hybrid type situation where we have a lot of buses available for the times when the students need them or when the senior citizens actually are going to use them. You guys have the data from that. You can predict when we will need the most number of buses most frequently. So for having the buses available on the routes that people want to travel on for those two populations would be awesome. And then for the rest of the community, it should be based on some frequency, not maybe the same frequency as it is today, maybe even longer gaps between buses, but then we won't have this, we'll have the same number of rides, but concentrated in time. I myself, I see the routes are convenient. It takes me where I want to go, but it never takes me when I want to go. And that's always been the challenge of me taking Lexpress. That's why I'm trying to see if there's a way to align it with fixed schedules of our citizens who benefit from the service. Thank you very much for putting this thing together. It's really informative to hear other people's views on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. I appreciate it. Thanks for dialing in tonight. I appreciate that. And let me get Carolyn in here. Stand by. Carolyn, can you hear us?
Got it. Okay, so now that, Carolyn Levi, I'm on Turning Mill, which is precinct 7. And precinct 7 now has to vote 4 or 5 miles away. We lost our walkable voting. So if we lose the public transportation option as well, that's disenfranchisement as far as I can see. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry, Carolyn. So could I just clarify? So when the routes changed, you believe the Turning Mill district was disenfranchised because of the change in the routes?
No,
of Lexpress?
If you do change the routes, if we lose that, then we lose a public transportation option to vote.
Gotcha. And how often do you ride Lexpress?
In the past, more often, now maybe every couple months, but I do anticipate as my driving will have to decrease because of my age. As that happens, I'm counting on it for aging in place. So but that's in the future. That's not right now.
Gotcha. And have you used any of the other services like Lex Connect?
No,
example?
No, I found it difficult to figure out how to do. It hasn't really been, it hasn't been enough information. I really don't know. I used to take the T all the time. When I was working, I commuted by bus and bike. I combined them. But now that I'm retired, I use mostly my car and occasionally Lexpress.
So as you said, aging in place, like the better understanding how to access Lex Connect or other solutions would also be valuable.
Yeah, actually that would be valuable now. It's just, I find it difficult to figure out. There was a parking pass offered and it was like I had to be at the community center within a few hours window or something. So that went, it's just not, it's not transparent enough.
Gotcha. So there's some, I'm trying to, and appreciate you answering some of these questions. I'm trying to pull together a bunch of threads from the other commentary as well. But so some better understanding and awareness or education around options and how to access those options would be valuable. Yes.
It would. Also, to my knowledge, they require quite a bit of pre-planning. So if I need something at the spur of the moment, or even without, planning a day or so, to my knowledge, that wouldn't suffice.
Okay, so more on demand, you could foresee in the future as you age in place a more on demand need. So when you need it, you'd want to access it as opposed to
right now. I just have to step outside and the Lexpress comes by and I get on. I don't have to plan more than a couple hours ahead. But if I have to plan a day ahead, it's just not going to work.
Gotcha. And do you read the Sage newsletter by chance?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carolyn. That was really helpful. I appreciate your comments. I'm going to go to Conan, who hasn't spoken yet. Conan.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes. I'm over at 175 Grove Street, and I no longer use the Lexpress regularly because my commute is now to Woburn every day. But for a couple years I did. So I'm one of those other people who tried to be a regular commuter on the Lexpress. And while I could get home to from Boston, it would be a 2.5 hour trip from Boston to Lexington, door to door. It was impossible to use Lexpress in the morning simply because it didn't start early enough. And so I think part of the thing why commuters can't use the people who work, especially people who work in a different town, is that it doesn't start early enough. And so maybe if somebody can give you a ride into the center or something like that. Or what I actually found out is, well, I could park near somewhere downtown now. When I shifted to a different job downtown, I could park downtown, take the MBTA, and then drive back home, which cut the Lexpress out of the equation entirely. And on the other note is so you do have the school population, and I don't want to make it sound like an us versus them type of thing, but they already have dedicated services for them, and that's already funded. if the Lexpress wants to assume that mission of providing extra service to students and stuff, especially for after school, perhaps there could be some kind of a funding from whatever budget goes to school transportation to be given to the Lexpress for that for that mission. So
Conan, could I just parse that? So I think we've been talking about two things. Like one, we've heard, there are students that might want services and alignment of routes so that they can access after school Lexpress services to go where they need to go. But there's also after school existing school bus services that take students from school home. Are you suggesting something different, or could you clarify?
Well, I guess, yeah, I thought I heard two different discussions. One about, well, school ends, we need to get places. That's provided really by the school buses at that point. And I went to school in Lexington, maybe of a different generation, but and maybe the after school events and stuff like that, that's a slightly different story. But either way, if the Lexpress starts to tilt heavily and towards that population, then perhaps again there could be some kind of transference of funds to help support Lexpress for fulfilling either of those two missions.
Gotcha. So a balancing of funds from, if the student population is already being taken care of, how can we make sure that we balance funding and routing to support folks that are going somewhere else that's not related to schools? Yeah.
And then I'll say this again, from being one of the other people who is a regular person who tried to commute to some places, there's the morning service issue of trying to get to work. I'll just put it on the table. I don't have any solutions to that, because cost wise, to say, oh, we're going to have one bus run at 6 a.m. in the morning down to the center so you can catch your connecting bus, and then that bus is going to sit idle. And that's one of the problems about saying, hey, we should have a lot of buses ready for when everybody needs them at these certain times. And what do you do? Send the bus driver home and have that bus sit idle for the rest of the day. That's going to cost a lot of money. So I don't have a solution, but I will say that, yeah, if somebody could find a solution, let's say for people who want to go downtown to work early in the morning, you might get another market.
Got it. Thank you, Conan.
Yep, no problem.
All right. Ruben, I see you've got your hand still up, so I'm gonna unmute you again and see if you have another idea here.
Thank you, Bridger. Could you hear me?
I can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to raise my hand again, but an idea comes to my mind while listening to you. One thing that I was thinking is about the student population of the universities in Boston. And this comes to my attention because when I was a student at Fletcher, I remember that a bunch of students like me wanted to come to Lexington because I live here. It was easy for me to go to Battle Green and visit historic places. But I remember that 31 of my classmates, they couldn't came, and it was so difficult. And I was thinking how to get to Lexington. And now that I am using public transportation more frequently, I see that you have MBTA, obviously, you have Alewife. From Alewife, you can take the grid. But having taken the three roads, one is Route C that pass just Arlington Heights, and the other is obviously all of them connecting Depot Square, but you have also the destination of Burlington Mall. And the idea that comes to my mind is how to involve some of the universities to promote Lexington and visit Lexington and have more local commerce incentive for people who are in Boston just temporarily, like most of the international students that never had the chance to know about Lexington. And Lexington has a lot of things to visit, not just Battle Green, the library, the museums. Is something that comes to my mind, and they have different schedules. You have a bunch of international student population in Boston and in surroundings that can get here, and they are trying to get rid of the city sometimes, of the campus, and just explore new things. And the issue is transportation. They don't have access to very good transportation. Probably Lexpress can knock some doors at the colleges or universities. Thank you.
No, that's great. I would never say I would want to leave Fletcher though, because that's an equally as beautiful place. So thank you for that insight.
Thanks.
All right, we have a comment here from Jing. Please introduce yourself and your address. Jing,
Hello?
can you hear us?
Yes, I can unmute myself. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank
Oh,
you.
great. Hi, good evening. Yeah. Thank you for hosting this meeting. Yeah, someone saying something?
No, just you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm a resident in Lexington for almost 10 years. I live on Middle Street. I apologize because I joined a little bit late, so my my conversation might be a little bit repetitive, or I missed some information that had been touched upon in the
That's
beginning.
okay.
So I just want to first of all saying that Lexpress has been a great like value for us, and my family, my parents who are in their mid-70s used to take Lexpress to like Burlington Mall and Market Basket quite frequent. I mean, not as frequent as every day, but every week or every other week, and they enjoyed it. And because they don't have a car, this really increased their autonomy, right? So they don't have to rely on us to take them everywhere. They really enjoyed it, and every time they got on the bus driver was great. However, during the pandemic, of course, they stopped taking the bus, and then the route got changed, and our house is no longer on the route anymore. So now they kind of lost that advantage, to take that express, even though we have MBTA bus coming to our close to our house, and they can take that and go to this town center and transfer to the Lexpress. However, the schedule doesn't coordinate that well. By the time they take the bus to the town center, they have to wait almost like 15 minutes for Lexpress, that bus to go to Burlington Mall. So now they just pretty much never go to the Burlington Mall and do things that they used to enjoy. So that's something, and also I saw the ridership has decreased. Maybe that's, one of the reasons was not because of the demand, is because people can get to it. So that's just, one thing that I thought of. Yeah, so sorry, I don't have any solutions or anything, but I just want to express that we really value this Lexpress services that Lexington has provided. And another thing is, I heard that there's no longer free ride for senior between 9 and 2 or something like that time, right? Is that a rumor or that's true? Because I missed the beginning.
I think what we talked about at the beginning was we just announced, we reminded folks that there's a new fare, there's a new pass, $20 annual pass. So I mean, you ride every day, and as much as you want. And so that's in there. Encourage you to take a look at that.
Okay, so there's no longer free time for senior.
No, I mean, we're looking. We haven't. I don't have. There's a $20 pass. It's unlimited rides.
Okay.
So if this is the new fare structure.
Okay, I see. Okay, all right, good to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Jing. Thanks for calling in. All right, let's see. I think we got another Kavitha. Let me get you in here. Kavitha, can you
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I just,
Excellent.
I joined late too, but I just have a question about Lexpress during the morning hours. I heard something about after school, high school hours, after school, but is because my kids have school bus, but still it is they don't take every day. So having that Lexpress option to the high school kids to get to the school, uh, did you guys touch upon that?
I guess, I mean, we weren't trying to solve for that problem. I mean, this is much more about sharing your impressions for how Lexpress does or does not meet your needs, or has in the past, or could be improved in the future to meet your specific cases. So are you paying for school bus services now?
Right now I stopped because my kids did not taking the bus anymore. They bike, and then the option I called in when my son started high school about these morning hours, and then they said they do not have that anymore. That is the big end of COVID era. So I'm not so sure like is still the case, and if it is something you guys can promote in the high school. If the morning, it really helps reduce the traffic and it reduce the, around the school, high school. So
I
I'm
got it.
wondering with this.
So Kavitha, before the pandemic, your kids were more likely to use Lexpress as a potential way to get to school. And now they're riding their bikes, etc. But you'd like to see Lexpress. It was a good option because they don't have access or don't use the school bus generally to get to school.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Bridger, can I just quickly, Kavitha didn't tell us where.
Oh yes, Kavitha, could you tell us your address?
Yeah, we are on Constitution Road.
Constitution Road.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, let's drop down to Judaya Finnegan. Let me unmute you. Hello.
Hello? Can you
Hi.
hear me?
I can.
Hi. My thing with Lexpress is I used to use it quite often. It doesn't come down Grant Street anymore, so I can't use it anymore. I live on Keeler Farm Way. There's nowhere anywhere near me that it comes.
Okay, so
And I'm in the Lexpress house.
Where when you were using it, when it did come by on the previous routing that was past your house, where did you use it to go?
I'd go to the grocery store. I'd go to the mall. Usually that's where I went.
Got it. Thank you. Any other insights you'd like to offer the group, or?
Nope. That I wish that it came by, but it doesn't anymore.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, we'll go back. It looks like Nish has his hand up again. Nish, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I did find a few more comments from other LHS students, and there were a lot of students that used the Lexpress to commute to and from work, especially after their shift hours, or because it didn't necessarily align with the morning and afternoon school bus service. So if it weren't for the Lexpress, they would be heavily relying on single occupant vehicles to get to and from their work. And there's also another small point that I'd like to bring up about the lack of student representation in terms of I don't want to say on the ad hoc committee itself, but a lot of students weren't necessarily aware of the fact that the ad hoc committee was like sort of I guess debating if the Lexpress was going to exist by the end of the year or not. And there wasn't as much of a realization that the service that they use every day was going to potentially not exist by the end of the year. And I think this fall, we should probably start kind of more, or like advertising more to students and kind of just like helping students realize that like, hey, this is not only a service that you can use, but if you don't advocate for it and if you don't like use it enough, it won't exist by the end of the year. And there is also another point that I'd like to bring up about students not being able to get to after school activities on the weekends, which is my main point, and that on the weekends without our school bus service doesn't exist on the weekends, and they aren't able to get to like Hayden or the center or the mall during the weekends without school bus service.
Sure. Nish, can I just ask you to clarify a little bit? So there is no service of school buses or Lexpress on the weekends. So, but there's also an abundance of options and challenges related to just being in high school and the destinations associated with post high school end time activities, whether it be work, play, sports, full range of activities going home. And so I was wondering if you just zero in a little bit on there's no services on the weekend. So, you know, based on the conversations that you're having with other students, I mean, is that really the zone that's really not being served as weekend services? Because there are plenty of other sort of things in the mix after school, but it seems like we've heard a lot about this weekend time zone. I was just wondering if you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke. I meant to say that with Lexpress, most or like weekend service with Lexpress, a lot of students would be able to use it. Or
so if Lexpress operated on the weekends, it would be advantageous to students.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Let's make sure. We're currently not doing that, but it sounds like you think that if we directly approach students and engage them in that conversation, that might be more advantageous to a service or something the community would fund that would serve them, as opposed to after school, which is a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
Richard, can I just one quick question for Nishant? Nishant, about you said that some of your friends and other students that you spoke to in the high school, they use Lexpress or could use Lexpress to go to work. Is this work, are the work destinations within Lexington or in surrounding towns such as Burlington or Bedford? Where are where are they going to work?
Yeah, so I have a friend that works in sort of near the Walgreen and like the Bedford Street and Warden Road Plaza. And I know a few students who also work at the mall who can potentially use the Lexpress to get there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Jyoti, I'm going to bring you in here. Let me know if you can hear me. I hope I got your name right.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jyoti, could you share your name and address?
So my name is Jyoti, last name is Shinde, and my address is 159 Shade Street, Lexington.
Thank you. Would you like to share with us some of your thoughts about the future of Lexpress and the value it offers to you in your life?
Yeah, so basically, I would like to request for additional stop on the Shade Street or Western Street or Carey Ave. We don't have any stop nearby within 2 miles radius. So I'm requesting within 1 mile radius, if you add any additional stop, that will help us to use Lex Express, because I go to downtown Boston and I don't have any stop nearby. So that's why I don't take very often Lex Express. So I just drive to LYF and I park my vehicle there. So if you consider that, I really appreciate.
Got it. So within a mile of your house.
Yes.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
I see that Siva has joined us. Let me unmute you. Siva. Good
Hello.
evening.
Good evening. My name is Shreyas. I live on Heritage Drive, and I'm requesting like a route that goes to like Hayden and Lincoln Park, because I have a lot of sports there during practice and stuff, and I'm having to stop at like the Qdoba area and having to bike the rest of the way. So it'd be really nice if you could make a route over towards the Lincoln Park.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that feedback. Right, it's 8:05. Sanjay coming in for a second comment. Let me unmute.
Hi, I wanted to get one more comment in, following up on my previous thought. When we have frequent service for the peak times, it doesn't have to be for the entire long route, because one of the challenges that I've heard is that, people have to wait a long time for a route to complete before the bus comes back. So if you have very targeted, like we just heard, Lincoln Park, Hayden Hayden Recreation Complex, those are very frequently used by some of the students. If we have bus service from there to different parts of town at a very frequent rate for those periods of time when students really need them, that would be a very helpful thing, I would think, and it might increase the ridership of the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. I see that Zoe has joined us. I will unmute you. Zoe, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Could you share your name and address?
I can. My name is Zoe Rajbandari, and I actually live in Winchester, but my parents live in Lexington on Wheeler Road. And so I hope it's appropriate for me to do a quick comment. You may have heard from my dad already. And he recently had a period of time where he couldn't drive. And he took the Lexpress. It was for his first time going all the way to Leahy. And of course, when he got out, it was snowing. And he went to the wrong place to be picked up by the bus. And the snow was so bad, I could not literally get out of my driveway because there was a traffic jam with police and everything. So in a panic, I called up and I spoke with Susan. And Susan assured me that she was not going to leave my father stranded at Leahy for the night. And it was getting later in the day. So I just want to let you know that it was such an amazing experience to know that my dad was going to get home. He was going to be safe. And he called me en route, and it was fabulous. But I grew up in Lexington and I rode the Lexpress many, many, many times. So I would love to see it continue. It's a fabulous service. And I know I appreciated it back then, but I really appreciated it more recently when my dad started using it. So thank you.
Can you hear me? It's Elaine Quinlan.
Bridger, you're muted.
I see.
I'm muted. Elaine, welcome.
Hi. Elaine Quinlan. I live at Elaine Quinlan. I live at Captain Parker Arms, which is an apartment complex near Lexington High School. I haven't had a car for almost a year. I'm a senior. I have a senior Charlie card, MBTA card, and I recently bought the $20 pass for Lexpress. and I took the sticker option, so it went right on my senior MBTA card. And I really like the $20 pass. It's just so much easier to just know all I have to do is just show the card and get on Lexpress. And I won't talk too much about where I go because it's been covered by other people, but I guess I would point out one thing is that the MBTA had a better bus project going on before the pandemic, and they did get it finalized during the end of the pandemic. But the trouble is, I don't know how fast they're going to roll it out because they're having problems getting bus drivers and things like that. But one thing they said they wanted to do was have bus 62 run on Sunday. So I don't know. I guess I would just point out that some of the changes for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, I hope they're coordinated with the changes coming from the Better Bus Project of the MBTA.
Thanks, Elaine. I appreciate that. All right, let's see. May have now I promised I wouldn't cold call on anyone tonight because I never liked cold calling, but I just want to make sure that there's a bunch of folks on here that have been really quiet and listening, and I appreciate that. All of us do. And I just want to make sure Diane, Jeremy, Paul, Tina, Todd, if you have something you'd like to say or you want to offer it. Oh, yes. All right, Diane. Diane, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Well, I've been invited to speak at a public meeting. That's very unusual.
Well, you hadn't met me before, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to formulate my thoughts. I did send an email earlier today because I wasn't sure if I would be able to join the meeting, but I did come. I didn't join until about 7:30. So as others had said, I apologize if things have been said
No, that's
already.
okay.
But one thing that my immediate reaction when I read about some of the things that were going on with or being discussed with Lexpress is the fact that town meeting is continuing to pass all these high density bylaws and increasing the number of units and households in the town. And the obvious thing, which I've seen, I've lived here over 20 years, but I've seen in the last 10 years, the traffic increasing dramatically. I live in the Estabrook area. I didn't say, my name is Diane Persley and I'm at 21 Turning Mill. I'm in the Estabrook area. It used to take me 10 minutes to drive in a single occupancy vehicle to town center. And now I literally have to allow 25 minutes to get to the center at various times of the day to get my kids where they need to be. And my daughter, one of them just graduated. My other daughter is in high school, and my work schedule is going to be changing. And I bought the $20 pass thinking she's going to take Lexpress. She needs a ride this fall. And I told her that, and she said, "What do you mean, Lexpress? I've never taken that. How's that going to work?" And so I reacted to the student earlier who was saying about education of the kids and that this service is out there. There needs to be more publicity at the high school, but also for the parents. I mean, the parents here in Lexington, I don't know, the thought process, but so many of the kids have their own cars. I mean, I say, no, you need to find the bus and find your way home. Now, if you decrease the service so it's not coming into my neighborhood anymore, then that causes a lot of problems for me in trying to push my daughter to take Lexpress. And she also has other places to go after school. She has activities after school, and she might be needing to go to her music lesson in East Lexington. That's something she could do right now with Lexpress, and I don't even have to be in Lexington to make sure that happens. So those were just some of my thoughts that I was taking notes on the side as I was listening to others speak. I guess the last point I'd make is it's kind of obvious because I know I recognize some very veteran Lexpress managers or been on this committee for a long, long time. But as you decrease service, your ridership obviously is going to decrease because it becomes less useful. So, I mean, my point would in fact be with your dense housing plan and the whole comprehensive plan, instead, you should be double down and triple down the amount of money you're spending on Lexpress in order to make it more useful to the town community members. Because if you're decreasing the service, then it's obvious it becomes less useful and ridership's going to go down. It's not.
Thank you, Diane.
I don't think. So I think that's it. Sorry to be a little long-winded. Thank you very much for the time.
Great. I'm glad that you shared that. Thank you.
Thanks a
Apologies
lot.
for the cold call.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I see Tina McBride is also. Let me see if I can unmute you. Tina, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you share your
So Tina
address, please?
McBride, 45 Turning Mill Road. Like a couple of other callers before, I grew up in Lexington, and I did enjoy riding Lexpress as a teenager. It opened up a lot of opportunities. It's not like it is now, where kids do get rides all over the place from their parents. I mean, people had fewer cars at the time, household cars, and so Lexpress opened a lot of doors. But I don't want to be redundant, but I have to say that the point that Diane personally just made about reduced frequency and reduced routes, I think that has in turn reduced ridership, or the opportunity for riders to jump on. I understand the pressures of cost, but in order to have a more comprehensive public system, cutting back on the number of residents that have access, it doesn't seem like it can benefit the overall effort. As Colin had commented, it doesn't start early enough. As Jody mentioned, the reduced rates eliminates the possibilities for some residents to use it. As we also heard that with some of our seniors, that can be isolating. And I understand that during COVID, the numbers probably went down. But I think that Diane's point about density should show us that that those numbers could potentially be going up, and more access could affect some of the traffic densities that we're going to be dealing with. There should be an educational push to encourage more student ridership. I think I was a school teacher in Manhattan, and having grown up in Lexington, I was really surprised at the number of students that got to school on the trains and on the buses, and the really, really young ages, of the kids that were taking trains. But it makes perfect sense. And we should be encouraging more of our kids to not just see how efficient it is to use the bus, especially after school, if you're not going directly home, if they're going to miss the regular school bus, but also the effects on climate change, reducing the number of car rides, reducing the number of parents sitting there idling, waiting for their kids to come out. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Appreciate that. Madam Chair, I have no other hand raisers at this time.
So it's 8:19. Let's give it a few more minutes, just in case either somebody jumps on late or any one of the others who are on right now want to speak. So we'll give it a few more minutes. But one thing that I've heard even sort of in my conversations with people and what people were saying today. Kudos to the Lexpress drivers. They have all been just resoundingly appreciated and liked. So that's really nice to hear. And that they're very helpful to everybody, seniors or people who are mobility impaired. So that's wonderful. So let's give it a few more minutes. Hey, I think we got a couple of raised hands.
Ah, yes. I was hoping Jeremy, I was sending the force through here and I was like, if I could hear from Jeremy. Jeremy, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can, thank you.
Good. Yeah, I'm Jeremy Bowman. I live on Downing Road. I moved to Lexington 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was primarily a transit and walking person in Somerville. I've been mostly car dependent since coming to Lexington, so I haven't actually used the Lexpress much, but I've been keeping a close eye on it because of my past in transit usage. So I'm hoping to use it more in the future. I've already purchased the pass as one less excuse not to use it when it's convenient.
Nice work.
One thing I just did notice about the map that I wanted to point out in case it hasn't been raised before, the A2 route currently it turns on Concord Ave to go over to the Avalon Lexington Hills. If it went 1 block further on Waltham Street to Trapella Road, it could hook up with the bus 61, which provides a nice connection option to the MBTA. Whereas right now, if you want to make that connection, it's an 11-minute walk, according to Google Maps. That closing the gap would also make it possible to reach the Star Market and that whole shopping area down there in Waltham. So I don't know if there's reasons about like just not wanting to venture into Waltham on the end, but we're currently venturing into Burlington and Arlington in other directions. So I don't know if like the routing is a good way to fix it so that you're not losing access to the places currently served, but it would be nice if you could just close that little gap.
That's a good observation. Thank you for that.
One last thing is I noticed that when I download the map for the route from the website, it's pretty blurry. It's sort of pixelated. So I'm sure if you're looking at it on the phone, it's fine, but if on large screen, it looks kind of bad. So maybe you can get a better resolution version of that on there.
Great, thank you. And welcome to Lexington.
Thank you.
I see Conan is back. I'm going to unmute you. See if you have another insight. Conan.
Yeah, I was just I asked a question on the question and answer thing part.
Yeah.
I was just curious to know like how much attention is being given to the fact that there's now I'd say like 70 acres of multifamily of area zoned for multifamily housing, and hopefully that will also broaden the socioeconomic the profile of Lexington, so basically I think that should be also part of the conversation about the future of Lexpress, because hey, yeah, if you cut something now, it's hard to establish it later, whereas if you do keep something going, I know then it's easier to keep that to enhance that service, so to speak. That's all I just wanted to add.
That's helpful. Thank you for reiterating that point.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Paul, for your comment in the chat.
Bridger? Oh, it looks like maybe a Paul Berger was trying to raise.
Oh, well, I can ask him. Hey, Paul, I unmuted you. Did you want to add something? I've asked him. I can't. Oh, where are you? Yeah.
Is Tina trying? Is Tina wanting to say something more? You could go there and then we could.
All right, I'll go to Tina. Tina. Oh, Paul.
Okay.
Paul and Tina.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Paul.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Paul Berger, live on Springdale Road. We live off of Wood Street. And we have not been able to share the benefits of Lexpress because there isn't a route down Wood Street. The closest route to us would be over a mile walk. So the rationale for doing that is when they laid out the routes is that we're serviced by the T so that they didn't put service down here. But we really don't share the benefits of that you talked about. The T route is very inconvenient between 9 and 3, very limited service. It's a very circuitous route to get from our house to the center. It takes about 40 minutes because they go up to Massport and then down Merritt Road and before they hook back in. So I'd like to second one of the comments made by one of the participants a little earlier to add routes. And I think the more routes that you add, the more you build up a ridership, a pool of riders. I've heard people comment about how the Lexpress is on time and the drivers are courteous and they're safe. That doesn't always apply to the T routes. So my basic comment is, I think if you add service, if you can somehow get over the initial funding, I think you'll find that there'll be more riders and that it'll be a more robust service. Now, right now we've been taking the T, but as we get older, we would rely more on the Lexpress to get to the center and to go to the library and to make use of the restaurants downtown.
Great. Thank you, Paul. That's important. I appreciate that. Thanks for jumping into the conversation here. I'm gonna see if Tina is back for a second go round. Tina.
I am. My daughter said when she was listening to me make a comment, she said,
Can you speak up, Tina?
sure. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Is that better? My daughter was listening to me make a comment earlier, and then once I clicked off, she said, oh, they should have field trips for all the students to go to the taverns on Lexpress. I think it's a great idea. I don't know if it worked, but I love that she engaged. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you very much. I'll notify Buckman immediately. All right. Madam Chair.
I think we should, maybe I'll share my screen and we can go to next steps so that people have an idea as to what is coming, right?
Great.
And here, just a second. I think this is it. Are we? Okay, you are seeing next steps. Okay, perfect. They're good, right, Bridget? Okay. So we have, so thank you. First of all, thank you so very much to everybody who spoke, there is a survey out in, it was attached to the email, to the communication that went out by email by Sean Dugan, the town communications person. So please fill that out, share it with your networks. That would be very, very helpful. People who ask questions, there were fewer questions, there were a lot more suggestions and also sharing of feedback and views, which we really, really appreciate. But we are going to put all of this, obviously it's going to, we're going to write all this up in the minutes because this was a properly posted meeting. So that will be available on the town website within a week or so. The LexMedia recording will also, be on the website. So if anybody's interested, they can look at that as well. So do reach out to us if you have, and I especially would like the senior citizens who spoke up to reach out to their friends and then reach out to us, as well as the students and everybody. But it would be great to have these two populations speaking up because we know we have about 7,000 students and 7,000 seniors. So it'd be good to get their feedback. So as I said, we will then take all this information that we've heard from you through the survey, plus all the research, the work that has happened in the past by the TAC, the Transportation Advisory Committee. We are going to work with them. We want to create a report because that is what we've been tasked to do, which is to come up with recommendations based on what the select board has said. There's some questions they've asked us to look into. All of this information, our charter is also available on our webpage on the town website. So then what we're going to do once we have the report ready, we're going to take those, the research will be sort of the content and then our draft recommendations, and we will share it through the similar outreach methods with folks in town. And then we will have a second community forum, which will be in person and probably also again, webcast live through LexMedia. But probably not in hybrid. So it will just be in person, but LexMedia will be streaming it. And then we will discuss those draft recommendations and gather feedback again. So none of these draft recommendations will be set in stone. We'll just share the reasoning as to why we came to that. There'll be a lot of information. We hope to bulk up our webpage so that people can look at information there as well. Then the in-person will be on September 13th. At 6:30 p.m., it'll be at Carey Hall, one of the lower large meeting rooms. And then we will present to the select board in early October, which is hopefully within the first 2 weeks. And the select board has to come back to us as to when they have time on their agenda for that. So we're moving quickly. And I did hear what Nishant had to say, and I'm sure the students were saying that wait for fall to come around, and the students, try and do more outreach in the student community so they understand what Lexpress is and this $20 pass. Yes, we will do that and try and but we will have all of sort of August and September and into October to do that. That should be hopefully enough time to get their attention and have people either fill out the survey or just reach out to us via email. And then we'll come to the select board. So those are our next steps. I'm going to stop sharing just briefly. So does anyone in the team or the committee want to share any last thoughts or any ideas? Or I want to just open it up before we close the meeting. To say something? Yeah, unmute yourself, Sally, if you want to say something.
Sure. I would just like to thank everybody because we so value and take into account your needs and your suggestions. And we just need you to realize that there are many constraints and considerations when we make our recommendations, but we are very glad you came and very glad to hear from you. And we hope we can accommodate almost everything everybody said.
Right. And I don't know about everybody else, but it just made me feel so good when people were talking about how this helps. Lexpress as a service helps to bring the community together.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to hear. And
yeah, it was wonderful. So many of you came out.
So thank you so very much. Since this is a posted meeting, I do have to request for a motion to adjourn. And if somebody could do that within the committee.
So moved.
So Carolyn moved. Can
I'll
somebody
second.
Ali seconding? I'm just going to go through a roll call vote. Howard?
Aye.
Sally?
Yes.
Varda?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Bridger?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes.
Joe?
I'm non-voting, but yes.
Susan?
Yes, I'm a non-voting member. Thank you.
I'm a yes too. Once again, thank you so very much for coming on a weeknight in the summer and helping us understand your experiences.